Good evening, folks. I'd like to welcome you all to the regular meeting of the Wappinger Town Board. Thank you for bearing with us with our unique setup today. Obviously, Town Hall is home to early voting, so our boardroom is currently preoccupied and currently being used for early voting, which has been a great success over the past 3 days. With that, may the town clerk please call the roll.
Councilman Beal.
Here.
Councilwoman Bettina.
Here.
Councilman Phillips.
Here.
Councilman Casella.
Here.
Supervisor Addisino.
Here. In just a moment, I'll ask you to join us in rising for the Pledge of Allegiance to the flag. That will be followed by a invocation and followed by a moment of silence for former Councilman Bob Johnston, who passed away. Please rise. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Let's pray. Almighty God, we ask that you would guide and bless these counselors who've assembled here this evening. As they make important decisions that impact the lives of thousands of people, we pray you will give them wisdom and that their decisions would be right and good. We come together this evening, and in doing so, we recognize the blessings that we have, that of residing in a republic and in a land that is free. We ask that you would help us to live up to and live out our greatest ideals, that we as a free people would not neglect our duty to keep what we have, to strengthen it, and to pass it down. As President Eisenhower reminded us, the history of a free man is never written by chance, but by choice. Guide us to make good choices for ourselves, our community, and our futures. We pray for this body that represents the people of this town. We ask that you would aid them to govern the people of this great town well, that it would be done with the spirit of wisdom, charity, and grace. We ask that their work would aid in the flourishing of the people who live in Wappingers. Finally, we ask that you would enable us to respect one another, to show kindness and grace, that we would be a people of hope, respect, a free people who cherishes life and liberty. As we find ourselves in such a divisive time of conflict and disunity, I pray that you would help us all to be the best versions of ourselves, that we would have the eyes to see the dignity and worth and value of our neighbors. As Christ reminds us, blessed are the peacemakers. May we seek to be a people who can debate and dialogue and express our differences with grace and charity, and doing so uphold one another's dignity as image bearers. And finally, I pray that you would help us to model a positive and healthy example of civic community and dialogue, that we be an example to our children and the generations that will follow us in this place. We pray these things in your name. Amen.
Thank you. You may be seated. Again, folks, we just had a moment of silence for former councilman and deputy town supervisor Bob Johnson, who served the town for just over a year and was very active in the day-to-day activities of this town government. Thank you, Pastor, as well, for your words. We appreciate your time as well. With that, do I have a motion to adopt the agenda?
I'll make that motion.
I'll second.
Moved by Councilman Phillips, second by Councilman Casella. All in favor? Aye. Opposed? None. Thank you very much. Do I have a motion to acknowledge the minutes of October 15th, 2024? Move.
Second.
Moved by Councilman Beal, second by Councilwoman Bettina. All in favor? Aye. Opposed? None. Thank you very much. Folks, we have 3 public hearings before us today on 3 different activities going on in our town government. The first is piggybacking off of a local law that we had introduced and is still being worked on by the town attorney, and that is the public hearing on introducing local law regulating hazardous pollution sources in proximity to public water supply sources, aquifers, and wetlands. This resolution is not on the agenda tonight, as it is still being crafted and worked on by the town attorney. but we did want to keep this public hearing open as it was tabled, but to see if there were any comments from the public. So with that, do I have a motion to open the public hearing?
I'll make the motion to open public hearing.
Second.
Moved by Councilman Casella, second by Councilman Phillips. All in favor? Aye. Opposed? None. Thank you very much. Motion passes. Folks, you have 3 minutes. We ask that you state your name and address for the record if you wish to speak on that public hearing. Seeing none, do I have a motion to close the public hearing? Or adjourn?
Move to adjourn.
Second.
Moved by Councilman Beal, second by Councilwoman Bettina. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? None. Thank you very much. That will be adjourned to the next meeting. The next public hearing is on setting the public hearing for proposed budgets, O&M, charges, rates, and rents for special improvement districts and special improvement areas for fiscal year 2025. Do I have a motion?
I'll make the motion.
Second.
Moved by Councilman Casella, second by Councilman Phillips. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? None. Thank you very much. Mr. Tremper, we have Mr. Tremper, who's the president of Camo Pollution Control, who runs our water and sewer operations. Mike, would you mind giving us a brief synopsis on this?
Absolutely not. I'd stay behind the glass here if I can. Well, thank you for the opportunity to come. I'll try to make this, I can get pretty wordy when it comes to water and sewer. I've done this a long time. So for the sewer plant budgets, we still have 3 sewer treatment plants: Fleetwood, Midpoint Park, and Wildwood. My part of the budget for Camo is repairs and maintenance of the existing equipment, sludge handling, electric, and all the day-to-day things that need to be done at these facilities to maintain operation. As you may or may not recall, each one of these plants, which have all of them were built approximately the same time in the early 60s, all operate successfully, but the DEC changed the requirements of the outfall of it. Okay, so this would be no different than if you had an old car and you were driving it and you brought it to be inspected, and the inspector said, oh no, it doesn't meet the exhaust the exhaust limits anymore. These old plants weren't designed to meet the new limits, so the town has embarked previously down a plan to do some engineering requirements outlined by the state DEC and to make some decisions which we're repunting on at this point. And I don't think it's really not my intent to talk about those tonight because they're not covered in my O&M budget. My O&M budget strictly is the repairs to the existing equipment, the operation of the existing plants, but you are sitting on some possibilities there. And I think when we look at each one of these plants, part of the new look that the town is embarking on is using the old plants, not just bulldozing them in and then building a brand new plant. For example, at Midpoint Park, the fee was $10 million to treat for those 153 homes. We're looking at using the plant that you folks have put money into the O&M process over the last many years and benefit from that. And the plants are not in terrible shape. They're not in terrible shape. So we'll just do one at a time, but I think that's important. That's like the most important thing to know, so if you look at the Fleetwood sewage treatment plant, when you look at all the different parameters I just told you, your budget increase is approximately 3%. All right, I try to keep the numbers at least within the consumer price index, and all, because we're dealing with electricity, we're dealing with chemicals, we're dealing with labor, we're dealing with all those things, and to keep the plant up and running. For Midpoint Park, it's the same increase, 3%. And for Wildwood, it is at 4%. And these numbers include, as part of when the town engineer and the town attorney and myself and the town supervisor went to DEC, we mentioned that we would do some additional monitoring and some additional testing at these plants to help get a game plan for the future. These numbers include that additional testing. So just keep in mind, the previous engineering costs and things I had no control of. I don't know where they came out of, what the expenses were, and I don't know how that worked. But that's where we are with the 3 small satellite plants. We still have United Wappinger Sewer, which is a big sewer system that has a lot of generators, a lot of equipment. That increase is up 4%, all right? We have included in that some I&I work, because as things come up and we can do the I&I work, that helps make cases with the tri-municipal to allow new connections. So if there's specific questions, I can answer them, or I can go through each line item one at a time. I'm not sure that that's what the intent for you folks are, but if you have questions about anything that I've mentioned, please ask.
So I'm not expecting you to go through line by line. My question would be, what type of impacts are you seeing on increases in costs, Central Hudson costs?
So that's a great question. And last year, I made some rough, very, very high increase estimates on our Central Hudson costs. And I'm not looking for any credit, but they kind of hit home. This year, I'm not anticipating just normal increases for Central Hudson. So I think we're good with Central Hudson. And, you know, not that I'm happy with what we're paying Central Hudson, but I don't think we're going to get hit out of left field with Central Hudson, which at one point, if you remember correctly, last year at this
Yes.
time, I wasn't sure of that comment.
Thank you.
Sure.
So just a question on midpoint. So on midpoint, what's your budget for this year? It's about 161,000. What are you going to, 161 to 167, you know?
Yeah, I do. Let me get the midpoint.
And that's without the debt service.
Yeah. This year's budget is $161,585. Last year was $156,000. I can't answer any
3%
debts.
increase, correct?
What?
3% increase?
3% increase, yes.
And actually, that doesn't include debt service, correct? That doesn't include debt service, correct?
No, that doesn't include debt service.
Okay.
Debt service goes on the tax.
Right, that goes on a tax return. I just want to make sure that's, because when they do a roll-up, what we've seen, it's got the total cost on there, which is roughly 192,000 going to about 198. So my point being is that debt service is roughly 31,000 of that, and it's been consistent. So if people are looking at their tax bill, my point is debt service is going to be relatively flat. So when you see your tax bill next February, it's going to be relatively flat to what you're paying today. My other point is that if you look at the base, what you're talking about, you'll see about a 3% increase, which is about $10 to $12 per month, or sorry, per quarter. So it's about a $50 increase on a full year basis. So I just want to kind of clarify that because, again, everybody's going to see some level increase, but midpoint in particular, because we just got a pretty significant increase this year, basically starting in the second quarter, because we were underfunded. And so we had to increase it. So we went from $250 to $304. So we saw about a $50 plus increase. And so we're going to add another $10 to $12 per quarter on top of it. So I just want to give the residents an idea. That's what it's going to be. And as far as the 10 million goes, you were talking about investing in midpoint. So that, hopefully that's going to come down dramatically. I know you're working with Larry and company on that to ensure that, again, those numbers improve. Because, again, with 153, 155 customers, that's a significant impact to us. And I know we're going for grant money through LaBerge and everything else, but I just want to make sure that residents are aware that they are going to see an increase. They'll see the 3%, but from a debt service, it's basically going to stay even, so no increase there when you see your tax bill in February. Thanks.
Yeah, and I will say this, keep in mind, I'm a Met fan, so I'm very hopeful always. But we had the preliminary meetings we had with the DEC. I think we're pretty positive.
Yeah. I was going to say, when Mike, Larry, and Mike and I went up and spoke to the DEC, we had a very, very productive conversation in person outlining the future capital plans for water and sewer in the town of Wappinger, and they were very encouraged to hear a number of those plans, especially with sewer. So, okay. Any further comments?
Just one,
Councilman?
just future thinking. We know 3 or 4 years ago, equipment spiked. You know, costs went up dramatically, and they keep going up way higher than the cost of inflation. I mean, you're seeing 10, 12, 50% year-over-year cost of equipment. How much is specifically the sewer equipment? Is it something to consider with the speed of moving? With the increases year over year, the cost to do this is going up dramatically just for equipment. What can you tell us from the industry?
I think everything spiked up as a result. I mean, I'll be like everybody else and blame COVID, but nothing was available and it was very, very complicated. We have seen things begin to level off. And fortunately, again, I'm not gonna pat our backs, but we have pretty skilled mechanics and things that can shop around and aren't stuck just getting what is out there as the most expensive things. And even though you saw those spikes of 12, 15% increases, I don't think my O&M budget for any of these plants ever went up much more than 4 or 5% a
No,
year.
I'm basically talking about a refit or, when we go to a project.
And that's what we're able to do because, we don't take care of plants just in Wappingers, we go all over. And we're able to retrofit equipment, make things work, what we've seen in other towns work here. And because of the way the budget is set up, there's a benefit for us to keep costs down and still do the right thing by the town.
Thank you.
There's no
So-
further comments.
And to add on to that, the generator that you folks approved back in the summer is gonna be installed by next week. So that's
Fantastic.
up and running, and we're good with that. Now, on the water end, the sewer gives you certain, hurdles we have to go over. And I think one thing I wanted to say on sewer to clear up, in the past, I've always said we should regionalize and not necessarily stay with these small plants. But regionalize doesn't mean rebuild a small plant, or it doesn't mean to take that little service area and go to tri-municipal. It means satisfy the needs and concerns of the people on DeGarmo Hill Road, or DeGarmo Plaza, or Fenmore Drive, or areas where we don't have municipal sewer, on the other side of town. There's lots of addresses. So when we look, my recommendation would be, is when you look to spend millions and millions and millions of dollars, which you're looking at, don't just satisfy the service areas of your particularly small sewer plants. Look to branch out, and that was one of the things with the Midpoint Park plan, and I'm not taking a shot at anybody, but it was $10 million, but it didn't bring sewage to anybody on DeGarmo Hill Road, didn't bring anybody on Fenmore, the DeGarmo Plaza. There was still a lot of people that were gonna be in need, and there's still a lot of people in the town that could use central sewage. For water, United Wappingers Water, we had in the beginning of the summer, there was a drought and a heat wave. We were able to get through it. Now we're having a drought, a bad drought. Fortunately, the drought this time of year doesn't coincide with filling your swimming pools, watering your gardens, watering your lawns. It's separate. The water tables are low. We are surviving. The wells, there was questions about the wells. We lost one well to PFAS, which the levels dropped back down. I can't guarantee you the levels will stay down. I'm gonna say that to you, that's for a different power than me. But we do test them, and we'll keep you aware of where we are with the levels. There's new regulations on PFAS and PFOAs the EPA has set forth. It's 4, now it's 10. New York State had the strictest limits in the country. They were at 10. The EPA recommendations are gonna be 4. They're gonna give you time to get there if you're outside of it, but that will be, if we need to do that, that will be a costly filtration program, which I am sure there will be grants available for that, but I put you on notice that is a limit. We just had the EPA randomly selects water systems for an inspection. We were fortunate enough to have the EPA in the town of Wappingers for 3 days in the beginning of October. They went through every liquor file I have, every water, every nut, every bolt, everything. We came through pretty good. The only thing we have to do is install some $100 containment areas over some of our day tanks. The other ones had them. So we came through good. We got a good letter from them acknowledging that, and the containment areas are in, and we just got to send pictures and answer back. So it was it was a good story. It was a successful, because the EPA was very thorough, very, very thorough. Additionally, we've talked about it before, the Hilltop wells, and a couple of the bigger one of the bigger wells at Atlas there's treatability issues. And when I say that, I don't want you to think that we have to shut the wells off, but the type of filters we have to clean the water and that are required by the state, the wells go through the filters, and when the filters get clogged, you just throw them out, all right? They're not a proactive system that cleans itself. So if you own a swimming pool, it would be like when your pool filter backwashes, you threw it out and bought a new pool filter. And every time we change the filters, it's, equipment-wise, it's $8,000–$10,000. So we have 3 sites that have the same filters. It's a very expensive O&M cost. It was very practical and reasonably capital expense, but the operation and maintenance charges or costs are high. So the wells, we have the wells at Hilltop and we have one well at Atlas. I've been working closely with Larry on, you know, the wells that are expensive to treat and change the filters, I don't run, all right? They can be run. If there's an emergency, I can turn them on and change filters. That's not a problem. But for the meantime, I try to run it as cost effectively as I can. And I know to the nickel what each well site costs per filter wise. But I think it's something that Larry and I have looked at. In the future, it may be a good time to get away from replacing the filters, and they make some actively ones that recharge themselves or clean themselves, and something that would O&M aren't as intensive for O&M. So that's something that we're looking at, and maybe at Atlas, one of the wells, instead of trying to treat it, we might be better off of putting some new holes in the ground called, you know, the wells in the ground that are better. And I think it's good for you to never, even though we're okay with water, it never hurts to keep trying to expand your source for water. Because even if and when we make an agreement with DEP to buy water from them, you can only buy as much water as you can make. So we have to have the ability, because they'll only sell us water if we, as long as we have the backup for them. So the United Wappingers Water District, you know, the water mains are 60 years old. There's a lot of aging equipment here. The increases for that is at 4%, and that includes all the electric, all the filters we've talked about. So that's where we are with that. The Fleetwood Water District that buys all the water from the village of Fishkill, all right, which, you know, at this point, you know, everybody go, you got to buy the water from the village, but if we were around 25 years ago, the people there had no water, and the water they had was terrible to drink, so buying water from the village of Fishkill was a good alternative for them. The costs for the Fleetwood budget are up 4%. The Watch Hill Water District, which is 127 homes down off All Angels Hill Road that extends up into the Brinkerhoff water supply, and they buy water from the Brinkerhoff district. Their increases are 4.8%. So those are the summary, a brief summary of the 3 water districts. And there's probably going to be some questions on water, so if you have them.
I was going to say, Mr. Tremper, if you can expand on why the Watch Hill Water District is going up 4.8%.
Because the Watch Hill Water District is, the water mains were put in years ago. The water mains are under, in some areas, over 140 pounds pressure. They were put on rock, and they're prone to leaks and distribution problems. And the difficulties are, we buy the water from the town of Fishkill. So if we are not aggressive with repairing the leaks, even the small ones, the costs to buy the water go high and really offset the budget. So maybe 5-6 years ago, we had an aggressive leak survey, fixed the leaks, we dropped the amount of water we bought from the town of Fishkill down almost 40%. So we want to keep it there so we don't have the elevated cost of buying water and then paying to pump it into the ground. And additionally, we're trying, as time goes on, replace the meters there because there was a problem with poor meter registration as well.
Thank you.
Are we running wells 3 and 5 up on Hilltop?
At Hilltop, yes, we are.
Okay.
All right.
And what is the capacity we're doing per day for gallons? Is it about 1.7?
Well, we can make, I don't have the leak stud, the production numbers in front of us. We can make 1.6 or 1.7, even more than that if I run everything up. Right now, the demand on the system is about 1 million.
Okay.
All right, so, which is a little high for this time of year. Usually this time of year, it's dropped down to 8 or 900,000, but 1 million's not bad.
Thank you.
Thank you. Any other questions? Seeing none. Thank you, Mr. Tremper. We appreciate.
Thank you very much.
No, we appreciate your comments.
Close the public hearing for the special permit.
Well, I was gonna see if anyone else was looking from the public, just wishing to speak. It is a public hearing. No, not Dean Avenue, no. This is in regards to the special districts. Again, I wanted Mr. Tremper to come up earlier on to speak before both public hearings here. This way folks had presentation ahead of time and can speak on them. So, seeing that there's no members of the public wishing to speak on this public hearing, do I have a motion to close?
I got one thing, though, before we do that.
Yes, Councilman?
With respect to, let me just make sure I'm in the right spot here.
Yeah, this is the non-water and sewer one, the one that we're on right now. I wanted Mr. Tremper to come up first. This way you can go home earlier.
Yeah. So, under 200, I believe that also includes the other special districts, right?
Yeah, so this would be for street lighting, this would be for drainage, all that.
All right, so let me just say this. So, the ambulance district is included within these districts,
Yep.
okay? We talked about this previously. Obviously, there's an increase in the ambulance district because the cost of service and the cost of readiness is increasing. We have been having active conversations with the Village of Wappingers Falls and our EMS provider, Empress, in an effort to achieve two things. And this is still something that we're negotiating.
Yes.
Because if we don't see a net savings here, it's not going to make sense. But we want to explore bringing the ambulance that's specifically assigned to the Village of Wappingers Falls that happens to be stationed at our building. We want to bring that under the umbrella of the town ambulance contract so that we have 3 ambulances instead of 2 during the day, and we have 2 on the overnight instead of 1. And what that will do is provide an additional redundancy for not only the town, but also for the village. And we believe that we can achieve a savings collectively town-wide by doing that. So those conversations are ongoing. But the reason why I'm bringing it up right now, the existing numbers that exist within the ambulance district are going to stay right now because we're not in a position to make any changes. But if we are in that position later on in the fiscal year, we're going to have a conversation collectively on how we can achieve that. And for folks that may or may not be aware, there is an ongoing EMS crisis, not just here in Dutchess County, but statewide, nationwide. We have been successful here in the town of Wappinger by staying one step ahead on this situation and ensuring that our residents have adequate EMS pre-hospital care coverage here in the town of Wappinger. So this is another step as we look downfield on the landscape of what's happening countywide and what's happening across the state, how we can improve that layer and add an additional layer of EMS coverage townwide. So just want to be fully transparent to the fact that I think we've had 3 meetings now about this, myself, the supervisor, the mayor, and village representatives on how we can achieve this in a fair and equitable way and be able to provide additional coverage for town and village residents. So just want to put that out there right now as we're approving this because that is one of the special districts.
Correct. Thank you. Any further comments? Seeing none, do I have a motion to close this public hearing?
Move.
Second.
Moved by Councilman Beal, second by Councilman Phillips. All in favor? Aye. Opposed? None. Thank you very much. Public hearing is closed. Next is opening the public hearing on capital budgets, O&M charges for water and sewer districts specifically, folks. Do I have a motion?
I'll move it.
Second.
Moved by Councilman Casella, second by Councilman Beal. All in favor? Aye. Opposed? None. Thank you very much. The public hearing is open to discuss water and sewer specific rates. Seeing none, do I have a motion to close public hearing?
So moved.
Moved by
Second.
Councilman Phillips, second by Councilwoman Bettina. All in favor? Aye. Opposed? None. Thank you very much. This public hearing is now closed. I'm going to move things around a little bit to the public portion of our agenda. This allows folks to speak on any agenda items only. We'll do all the public-facing things first before our discussions. Do I have a motion to open the public portion? Moved by Councilman Beal, second by Councilman Casella. All in favor? Aye. Opposed? None. Thank you very much, folks. This allows residents the opportunity to speak on agenda items only. You have 3 minutes. We ask that you state your name and address for the record. Yep, come on up to the podium.
Hello, my name is Brad Mennel. I'm at 10 Dean Avenue, and I'd like to discuss having the weight limit on Dean Avenue posted. Something like a half a dozen years ago, the laws were changed allowing trucks and tractor trailers to travel on 9D. And so we've seen an increase in trucks coming down Dean Avenue. And we get a lot of noise, and there are some hazards in allowing the trucks to travel down Dean Avenue. They're having to, a lot of them will end up trying to turn around. Both 9D and Old Hopewell sit higher in elevation than Dean Avenue, and it's particularly noticeable with 9D. So when heavy cars and trucks and tractor trailers come off of 9D and come onto Dean Avenue, the force where they hit the roadway makes a lot of noise, and you know, they tend to bottom out there as the vehicles come over the roadway. It's also the place where 2 or 3 years ago we had a gas leak on Dean Avenue, and I'm sure it was exacerbated by these heavy vehicles coming off of 9D into Dean Avenue. And so it's disturbing to the residents, the sound that's generated from these heavy vehicles traveling through Dean Avenue or trying to turn around Dean Avenue. And we ask you, if you would, to try to add this provision, put the sign up preventing heavy vehicles from traveling Dean Avenue.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. And as Mr. Mennel had noted, you know, there's a significant issue on Dean Avenue. The road dates back to the early 1800s. Councilman Beal, myself, have met with several of the residents on numerous occasions about the issues and concerns on Dean Avenue, and the fact that, again, this is a very narrow, old street. And I would not have believed if I didn't see it for myself. Mr. Silvestri had provided us pictures of car carriers, semi-trucks coming across and down Dean Avenue, which is a very, very dangerous situation. So the councilman and I have worked on this, and hopefully we can come to a resolution through this local law, which would impose a weight limit restricting very large vehicles from going down that small street.
Yeah, it's a matter of safety, obviously. By legislating this, we believe that the GPS units on these tractor trailers will show that it's a restricted roadway, right? Yes. I mean, we can put signs up all day long. We need to make sure there's a tangible difference. The car carrier, that was just crazy, the video that George had. Just a car carrier trying to pull out onto Old Hopewell Road, bottoming out. I think it took the stop sign down.
Went across your front lawn, took out a sign.
Yeah, so the question becomes, why is this happening, right? I mean, it's people using it as a cut-through in commercial vehicles, where, you know, having driven large vehicles myself, you should be thinking before even turning onto that street. That's crazy, because you can't get out on either side. We've had discussions about this. I appreciate the patience from the residents. We needed to do something here that's going to actually have an effect, right? We talked about this. What we believe is going to happen here is, once this is legislated properly, it goes on the books. I'm going to make sure that the GIS contact that I work with, who speaks to Garmin and all the the GPS unit manufacturers that this information goes. It may take a year for that to happen, but Google Maps, Waze, all those, they get this information from municipalities and from counties, and they upload it into their units. That's why you can see the speed limit sometimes on your car, right, when you're driving. So we want to make sure that's going to actually happen. So we'll put signs up once we pass this law tonight.
Well, we introduced it tonight.
Excuse me, once we introduce this law, we got to follow the law. Once we introduce the law, we're going to pass it. I don't think you're going to find anybody objecting to this, but we wanted to make sure we're doing this in a way that's going to actually have an outcome that's positive, not just legislating to legislate, right?
Exactly.
That said, we've had conversations about school buses, right? I mean, it is crazy sitting there watching school buses try to make turns out of that road. That should not be permissible, and I don't want to impact anybody adversely that may have school children on that street, but we can't have school buses coming in and out on that road. The visibility is not there. It is a situation where somebody could come up over that hill on Old Hopewell Road going towards 9D, and they're all, driving very quickly. You can't stop. And I've actually told my own father, don't go through there because there's not enough reaction time if somebody's coming at you, right? So we're hoping to achieve that by this. We talked about a couple different angles on how to do this, right? We think this is the way to do it, and we'll talk more about it when we introduce how did we get to 10,000 pounds. We'll talk about that in a few minutes. But we certainly agree with your position on this, and hopefully we can see a positive outcome here. Plus, we'll do some enforcement too, obviously. There's got to be some enforcement on this.
Yes.
Did I miss anything?
Nope, you're good.
Okay.
Thank you, Councilman.
Thank you.
Any other members of the public wishing to speak on agenda items? You can please come to the podium and state your name and address for the record.
Thanks, Mike.
Thank you, Mr.
Michael,
Tremper.
thank you for all your work that you,
Don't retire, Mike.
Mike.
He can't hear you through the bulletproof
Thank you for
glass.
all your work and your due diligence and your service to the town. It is recognized. Trust me, it is. Thank you.
for giving me the opportunity to do it.
Thank you.
Thanks, Mike.
Thank you, my friend. Thank you. And if everyone could speak loudly tonight, obviously we are behind, as the councilman noticed, bulletproof glass. Not by design, this is just, again, because we're in this room. So if everyone could please speak up, that'd be appreciated.
Yeah, my name's George Silvestri. I live on the corner of Dean and Old Hopewell, 87 Old Hopewell Road. Lived down the street all my life. But there's a lot of problems on that road. I know the weight limit would be a great start. The speed limit on the road is really too much for that road. It's 30 miles an hour. I've tried to do 30 miles an hour and I can't do it, but it seems like people do. But they come off of Old Hopewell Road doing 40 to 50 miles an hour and they don't even slow up. They just put their foot in it. And you people are welcome to come sit on my porch and watch it see what's going on. We've had people's dogs get hit on the road. I mean, I've had people where I started to walk across the road and blowing a horn at me. It's only a little narrow road, as Joey said, I'd like to see some other things down the road looked into, but the weight limit is a good start.
Thank you. Thank you, Mr.
And,
Silvestri.
I've worked for the town for many years, the highway, so I know the conditions of the road back and forth. In fact, Central Hudson come down to me the other day and was asking me about the pipes in the road that they couldn't figure out what they were for.
Oh, geez.
So, it'd be nice if we could maybe pursue it in the future, the
That's not
speed
good.
limit and stuff. I know you have to petition the state and all that
Yes.
to get speed limits changed. I know there's a big problem.
Yes, yes.
Well,
And-
as we said last time,
Yeah.
towns don't have control over speed limits, right? But I think we could, I don't know, I gotta talk to the attorney, but I think we could put like a recommended, like a 15 and a yellow sign. I think we might be able to.
The yellow and
He's-
black sign are suggested speed.
Right, right.
They can't write tickets on, but if they were put up, maybe if people see them and say, wow, hey, it's 25
And this is
miles or
this is the
20.
catch-22 here, where we just referenced people don't always pay attention to signs. There has to be the
I know,
enforcement
I know.
aspect of it. So if we post a sign saying we recommend you travel 15 miles an hour, but we can't get you on 15 miles an hour, it's hard. So this is again something that we continue to look at across the entire town.
I
The
mean,
amount
I
of
actually park my vehicles out in the
I know.
road to slow them down.
I know. Yeah.
I mean, I'm
Oh.
taking a chance that they can clobber them. and
Hopefully
that-
nobody hits them.
But we're seeing this again all across the town. We
Yeah,
probably
I
get
know.
requests daily for folks concerned about speeding in their neighborhoods. And we've been very aggressive this year with targeted enforcement patrols with the Dutchess County
Yeah,
Sheriff's Office.
Patrol's been there, I've seen them.
Yep, well, for example, on Dean Avenue.
They don't stay long enough, and they're there at the wrong times.
Well, on Dean Avenue, we were able to get, I believe there was 40 stops this year on Dean Avenue, which is impressive. I have the exact
No,
number
I've
in the
seen 'em
office.
there.
But again, we're doing these targeted patrols now with the Dutchess County Sheriff's Office. We're circling around both the county and the town speed trailer, which shout out to Legislator Faust for being here as well. We've been able to move this piece of equipment around the town that
I know, I
actually
used to
collects in
move it
real
to
data. No, but real data, how fast people are going, the times, the average speeds, all this different information that we're able to collect and then provide right back to the residents. We were able to do this Pie Lane, Chelsea Road, a number of other places throughout the town. So we're being very aggressive when it comes to this. Again, we need to have additional enforcement, but we can't have a cop on every street corner. So
no,
we
no.
continue to cycle it around and
I
try to
appreciate
address it.
everything that you are doing, and I
Thank you.
appreciate this weight limit. And like I said, it's a start, and hopefully
Thank you.
we can go, keep on in with it. Thank you for your.
Thank you.
Thank you, Mr.
Thank you,
Silvestri.
Mr. Silvestri.
Any other comments?
Good evening, Grace Martin, 52 Fieldstone Boulevard. My questions are in asking about the budget, so it's 201 and 202. When, as the public, will be able to see some of the line items on the preliminary budget? Are you only giving us between the 7th and whatever day to make the comment? Specifically, she's smiling. Specifically, I'm highly interested in the rec and the rec of the children in our town, as well as the rec of the seniors. So, I mean, in years past, I've kind of knew a little bit, drilled down line per line, like what are we getting for the buses, what are we getting for this, what are we getting for that. That's kind of the drill down I'd like to see when I have an opportunity to plead my case and maybe go
You
up a
have
few percent.
that opportunity now, Mrs. Martin. It's been posted since I delivered my tentative budget addressed to the town board. That's available for viewing in person at the town clerk's office and as well as on the town website.
Okay, so if I go to the town website and/or the county clerk, the town clerk, excuse
yes.
me, I'll be able to get the full
You'll be
budget
able to see the full supervisor's
line
tenant budget,
by
yes.
line.
It is fully transparent this year,
Okay,
it's line by line by line.
There we'll
You'll
see
be
it
able to see
tomorrow.
that, yes. And again, you can also see it on the
I'll try.
website. The clerk had it added right after my presentation.
Great, okay, yep, thank you.
Thank you. Okay.
Hi, Petra Manel, 10 Dean Avenue. This is again about the resolution 2024-204. I just wanted to add to this that Dean Avenue may be the historic center of Houstonville. 2 houses on this road were built in the 1700s, and they exist still in the same shape that they did then. Seeing both on the inside, we actually live in one of them. 20 years ago, there were little kids playing in the street all day long, actually sometimes a little annoying. You cannot see any kids anymore. The kids of those kids now, they cannot be outdoors because it is so scary and dangerous on this road. So this is please, just help us. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Mrs. Manel.
Oh, and one thing that I wanted to add, sorry. When the gas station opens, there is an additional increase in traffic that I see could happen because you can only enter the gas station as you travel south on 9D. So people could circle around or turn onto 9D as they are traveling north, do a U-turn, and then attempt a left turn onto 9D. This is a total gridlock at that intersection because you will never be able to get out. It sometimes today happens that somebody is turning left and the car just sits there and cars are piling up behind that car. So a no left turn may be something to consider at some point as well. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Any other residents wishing to speak on agenda items? Seeing none, do I have a motion to close the public portion?
Move.
Second.
Moved by Councilman Beal, second by Councilman Phillips. All in favor? Aye. Opposed? None. Thank you very much. Okay. We have 2 discussion items before us this evening. Our first one is Naseem from our engineer to the town's office, Larry Podgy, to come and speak about a proposal at Drexel House Park. We've been talking about this throughout the year. It's actually since my inaugural address about taking down the stage that's at Drexel House Park, which is long overdue and has definitely seen better days. We also discussed this during the State of the Town address. It's been a year-long's worth of conversation. Councilman Phillips and I have definitely discussed and deliberated over what the future should be. And, obviously, first, earlier in the year, the town board, I circulated a image, a vision of what we were looking to get to. That is what we basically took off from, and here we are today. So, Naseem, if you would be able to go through and give us a quick synopsis as to where we are and where we have to be, that would be appreciated.
Sure. First of all, thank you, board, for having me here. My name is Naseem Dufour with P2G Architecture. I work very closely with Larry Podgy and his engineering office to start putting together, on behalf of the town supervisor, a preliminary design for the Drexel House Pavilion. The design culminated with a site visit with the town supervisor, Larry, and myself on site to evaluate the condition of the existing structure, which at that time was very clearly not sufficient for anything. I do know I was there at least 2-3 weeks ago for the event that was at that park. It's a lovely event. I've gone 2-3 years in a row now, and I would love to be a part of putting a stage there, a community space that's going to be well used and reflect the history and the ideals of the town of Wappinger. So at that meeting on site with the 3 of us, we tried to establish a scope of the project, and this rendering that you see in the top left-hand corner of the page, that was what was provided to us, and that was kind of what we took as inspiration for designing a pavilion. This stage here we saw had very big, very large timber structures. It looked like it was a concrete slab raised above the grade with a stone base. There also looked to be some kind of storage or restroom spaces on the side and behind, as I was looking at just this rendering. What that led me to originally decide was to replicate this rendering in a manner to present to the town. Upon starting design, my initial course of action was to do a code analysis, at which point I came back to the town supervisor, and we discussed that to create something of this scale with this magnitude and these spaces would require the town extensive costs for fire suppression, a fire pump room, and getting water to the site. So what we did was we narrowed down that original idea to provide just the necessities for what the stage would be used for. And what we established was that the most people that would be on the stage would be about a 50-person orchestra or smaller. So based on my calculations and what the code allows, we can have a exactly 50 by 20 square foot, 50 by 20 or 1,000 square foot stage. And that would be the limit of a stage that you could have performances on without needing fire protection. From that point, we decided that we would start looking at different design elements while also keeping the stage within a fairly reasonable cost for the town. So I went and I looked at, after talking with the town supervisor, some different materials that we can use and some ways that we can offset some of those costs. So we took into consideration that wood frame construction and poured concrete are some things that the town could take on their own to reduce the cost that the town would see from a contractor. So moving on from the top right photo to the top left photo was an evaluation of the site. And on that site currently, it's zoned as an R40 or a single family residence, which there's already a single-family residence that's being used as the operations of the park. What I see this structure being is an accessory structure to the primary structure being the house, but in terms of square footages and per the zoning law, this stage would act almost as the primary site element. What that means is that would affect the location of the stage on the property. A primary residence would be would need to be forward of the property line 50 feet, or an accessory building would only need to be 10 feet away from the property line. So that would determine how close or how far this building would be from the neighboring property. I think while it's not the primary structure, and we all know it not to be the primary structure, we also don't want a big dead space back there for people to park cars and for things to happen kind of in the shade behind the trees and behind the stage where it's difficult to see. So I felt that without the town having to request a variance from itself, it might be appropriate to put it about 25 feet from the property line, which is what we're assuming, which gives somebody enough space to get a trailer, unload equipment, and load it up onto the stage without there being excessive space behind the stage. Nextly, on the bottom right is where I took design inspiration from. This is a photo from Hudson Valley Style magazine. I also drive All Angels almost every week, and as you come around the bend up the hill, you get a very clear view of the mountains, and it's a beautiful view that inspired me to kind of replicate that in the design with the materials that I chose. So that's where I took design inspiration from our local Hudson Valley and from the town of Wappingers. The bottom left photo references some of the materials that I'm looking to use here. Again, I wanted to keep this as cost effective and as straightforward for the town as possible. So using a stamped concrete that's on a slab, an elevated slab, would be the easiest way for us to get something that's not just a simple concrete slab, but can have some design. I would like to see some kind of compass rose in the center, and my actual concrete expansion joint plan allows stage performers to locate where they are, front right, front left, rear right, rear left, on the stage very quickly. So that's the first page that I have. Going through my notes here, I know that there was discussion on the last meeting about some storage on the pavilion. So if you don't mind, I'll flip this page now. And you should see, I believe, floor plans, a floor plan and a foundation plan of the proposed stage. The foundation plan is essentially going to be filled except for the this portion of this far portion over here of the stage, which we'll be hollowing out essentially to have grade level storage. And then as you come up the ramp onto the main level of the stage, we're providing an electrical room with electrical panels and a way for electricity to be provided for stage performers. Not so much microphones, but more just to plug in outlets for speakers, for other equipment, subs, and things along those lines. So that is the idea of a very simple foundation plan with the stamped concrete floor plan of the stage. Besides the compass rose, one thing to note is the actual stage portion will be a herringbone pattern that's radiating from the center of that compass rose. So following this page here will be the roof plan as well as the floor plan showing the construction of the walls. The idea, again, was to use wood frame construction with a vapor barrier to protect the wood. We intend to use pressure-treated wood along all of the exterior materials, and then that would then be covered with a fiber cement board hardy siding. which is a cementitious siding material that's essentially very durable and long-lasting. We wanted to put on a material that was, while it may be a little bit more expensive, it would allow the town to get the most use out of the stage for the longest durability. So the overall cost for the life of the stage would be reduced instead of the upfront cost. The last page that I have for you is the elevations of what we anticipate the stage looking like from the different sides. Essentially, the main part of the stage would be the mountains with the sun kind of enveloped in them. That center ring that you're seeing would be a stainless steel backlit of the seal of the town of Wappinger. And that would be what would be lit up. As well as the ridge of the mountains. We would have an inlaid light that follows those peaks to allow that to be lit up between the sky. I also have a custom designed truss up above to represent the clouds that is being designed out of glue lamp structure. So down below, underneath the slab, we intend to replicate some of the same materials that you see at the
house?
not the house,
Or the park?
yeah,
Whatever.
what's it called? The soldier.
Oh, the Soldiers Monument.
Yes, it's the monument.
the War Memorial.
So, so we wanted to replicate some of the brick that was in there and taking some of those brick elements with the foundation and bringing it into the stage. Again, just in case you guys weren't understanding of how we're changing the orientation, we are rotating it so that the stage is no longer facing the orchard. It will now be facing the intersection of All Angels and the monument. So as events are coordinated and can happen, there's actually more space for congregation to happen in front of the stage, and the direction of the sound can be traveling through the length of the park. So I'll keep going on my presentation here just to make a note of the schedule. So based on our original conversation, we had intended that this project would be set to finish construction in May. With our understanding of that, this project would need to have a bid opening date of December 11th in order for us to meet the requirements as we understand them from ARPA. So as we understand, the ARPA funds need to be enacted or given out.
Contractually
Yep,
obligated.
by the end of this year, which would mean we would need to take these drawings and turn them into a construction set of drawings to go out to bid by November 22nd, which gives us just about a month to get this to a point where a contractor can come in and build this building. So with that time constraint, I would urge the board to consider this presentation and consider this option as complete as possible at this point. I think a redesign of this stage would be unfortunate because there's very little left to be stripped out of the stage. The stage has been brought to a point where it's the bare minimum that you need to have a performance. It's just electrical and it's just 2x4 or 2x6 walls with a cladding. We were looking at some other options for performance stage floors. We were looking at some options for using a composite decking system on a wood frame, but those options fell through because of the practicality, the durability, and just not the right product for what this the stage is intended to be
And I
used for.
might add too, that's what we currently have out there, and it's
Yes.
home to animals, garbage, things like that.
Yes,
So-
that was also how, thank you, that was also how we came to the conclusion that an infill slab on grade elevated above the current grade level would be better than, framed floor where animals and different insects could live, and possibly people lose things under there that we can't get out without pulling up the floor. The stage is not elevated high off grade level. It's only 30 inches, which is what you need minimum before you need a landing and a ramp. And the fire, again, if a stage is more than, I believe it's 4 feet above grade, you would need to provide fire protection or a sprinkler system underneath the stage. So we're within those constraints. The last thing that I want to touch on is in the last meeting, it was brought up that it could be an option to use a pavilion kit. I would highly not recommend using a kit. They're very utilitarian. They might meet your need, but they won't last as long as you think. A lot of times they are equipment that is meant for short-term uses. For example, you've seen probably, if anybody's gone to a concert, the metal stages that are erected and then meant to be broken down. They're not meant to stay in the weather. And then there are some other kits that you could get that are wood or glue lamp construction that need a slab provided. Those kits are very residential. You're very limited on the sizes of those. And as we've done research, I think the largest sizes without it becoming custom are maybe 15 feet, I think, by 5 feet. Those are they're meant for people's backyards at single-family homes, and this is not the use for that product. So with that, I thank the board again for having me here, and I'm free to answer any questions if anybody would or has them.
Any?
Yeah, what are the dimensions of the current stage?
Off the top of my head, I don't remember them exactly, but I think they were roughly, 15 feet by 20 feet. It's square, but it's almost half the size of this current stage.
Yeah. And so, just to back up Nasim's point about having a large-scale performance on that site, we currently host every year, sometimes a couple times a year, the Southern Duchess Concert Band, right? Which is a 50-piece band, and they currently play in front of the stage. So this would obviously allow us to have that band that we routinely host every single year on that stage. We've also hosted off-Broadway performances, partnering with JPAC, Ketchum, things like that. So offering something like this would truly allow us to have a stage that can serve the needs that our current stage cannot now.
I don't know if that's accurate. I don't think our current stage is 15 by 20. That doesn't make any sense to me. It's a lot bigger than that. 15 by 20?
I would say 20 by 30.
20 by
Closer to
30.
20 by 30.
Like 22 by 30.
All right, I'd like to know what the current, I don't want to have less than we have now, I'll be quite honest with you.
This is more. This is definitely
I
more.
can assure you, because I went out and did field measurements of the existing stage. I don't have them as part of my presentation
Right.
in front of me, but I do know that the size of our current stage is significantly larger than the stage that's out there currently.
Okay. It seems to be significantly lower, though.
Yes, and that is because of the limitations of having accessibility and sprinklers.
Yeah, I'm also not convinced that we need to comply with R40 zoning within our park.
That's,
We do not. We do not.
So I still have a lot of questions on this, and I understand there's a tight timeline, but I really don't want to end up with, as you put it, the bare minimum. I don't want the bare minimum. That's not what I want. I want this town to have something that serves it properly and not be rushed to do something that is the bare minimum. And I understand we're on a timeline with the ARPA money, which is in the resolution here. What do you estimate the total cost of this project?
we were estimating and budgeting around 750,000.
Yeah, I appreciate your design, and I do like it, but I still have a lot of questions about the project overall.
What's the life expectancy of this?
The stage, with the materials that we have selected, should be over 50 years.
Our current stage has lasted us about 50 years. Yeah, it's from the 70s.
Right, but it was built by BOCES.
Correct.
So, it cost us-
And again, I'd like to argue too, don't forget, that stage has needed a number of significant repairs, including a brand-new header. We thought it was part of the design, but
Right.
it was two header joints that were just bending. It's needed a number of significant repairs. The electrical cannot sustain a simple band being up there. We've had buildings and grounds go out there, I mean, countless times, replacing lighting, things like that. So I think when Nassim had noted that this is bare bones, it's not necessarily a bare bones stage, because there are a number of decorative elements and it is a larger stage. I think what we were getting at was it would not have a green room because we would be subject to fire code. That would obviously make it a little more expensive. It was the back end of what we're looking at behind the scenes. Because trust me, we built out a whole thing, and then we'd be subject to fire code and a number of other codes that would make it obviously more costly for the town.
As the town grows, would it be easy to make it larger if we needed to?
It would be, yes, because what that would entail would be pouring a joint foundation next to the existing building, creating an expansion joint in the slab, infilling your new foundation space and continuing your slab over.
So it's possible.
The new wall construction is to be pressure treated lumber, 2x material that, you know, can be erected and then finished with a fiber cement product. It's all, the product that we were using was meant for longevity. So.
Wouldn't it seem at that point would require fire protection?
At that point, we would definitely require fire protection because I don't see the code getting less stringent.
That's a significant endeavor.
Yes.
Fire protection.
Yeah.
There's variances, I mean, there's a lot of options here that I think need to be explored. I mean, I don't want to do this once and then have to do it again. This is something that we should be doing the appropriate way one time, right? And I do agree with, you know, we need a new stage, yes, but I don't want to be doing something that is less than what we currently have. And I understand what you're saying, but to me, 38 inches high is 3 feet. And I'm not satisfied with that.
But then 4 feet, we have to do fire suppression.
There are discussions that need to be had. I mean,
Yeah.
We're also being told that we have R40 setback requirements. I rezone it. It's a park.
Well,
You
yeah,
know, it's not
well,
accessory
we're
building.
exempt from zoning anyway.
Right,
so
but it's, you
we
know,
wouldn't need a variance for exempt, so
Right,
yeah.
right, but there's a lot of things that need to be discussed here with respect to, you know, I wouldn't consider this an accessory building. We have a chicken coop next to the other building. That's never been considered within the zoning.
We tore that down.
Right, well, we had it, right? I mean, we have sheds all over the place over there.
Thank you to
so-
Buildings and Grounds.
Right.
Councilman Deal, I don't mean to interrupt, but when I provide this information, it's not to say that the town has to provide themselves a variance. It's me as an architect doing my due diligence to go through and provide you with all of the information that you need to make these decisions.
I don't have all the information, all due respect.
Understood.
I don't have all the
Sure.
information. I think we, as a board, need more information. I'd like to discuss this in workshop on the site. I want to have a meeting right there on the site, on the stage, and discuss this, because I want to be able to stand there with a wheel, measure out where it's going to be, stand out there and see where the setback would be to the fence, right? What that's going to, I want to feel like I have all the facts. I don't have all the facts, and I don't want to spend $850,000 on something that's going to be less than we have. And I understand what you're saying, but I'm not sold on the fact that this is more when this is, quote, the bare minimum.
So if I could just, 2 points for clarification. First of all, the information relative to zoning. It was presented just to describe what your zoning is and that this doesn't conform. There is a 50-foot setback requirement. Nassim is only providing 25. What he didn't mention yet is that where we're providing 25 is not adjacent to a residential use, which is a good thing. It's next to the farm, so it's even less of a consideration. We are not meeting zoning requirements, but as it being a municipal function, a municipally owned property, you're not subject to going through those processes and procedures, I believe. I defer to Michael on that. The second thing I don't disagree that, you know, that if you want to see more information, it's that you should be allowed to see it, but it's got to happen very, very quickly, because while Nassim said that he's got a month, I mean, what's got to come together within a month is electrical, site, structural, architectural, and then bids. There's
There's the advertising
There's-
for bid that needs to go out publicly.
We are up against it right here with timing to really make this happen. If that's true, that the ARPA money has to be allocated, by contract by December
Yeah,
31st.
we can definitely organize a site visit and make sure everyone's comfortable. Obviously, I'd like to know.
We could do that and then meet again Monday, right?
Yeah, I just want to make sure that we're on the same page here and have everyone's concerns laid out ahead of time. And then this way we're taking care of it then and there. I would like to note too that the Mizzier Park gazebo, that stage platform in the front, is only 3 feet high, just to put that in perspective as well. That is a very high gazebo.
Right, but the elevation of the crowd is higher.
Of course.
It's a bulk.
I just want to put that in perspective. Again, elevations can change, but just to put that in perspective, if you're trying to think, because 3 feet, you're thinking it's pretty short, that is the Mizzier Park gazebo height right there.
Right, that's a
But
gazebo though.
it's a band shell too.
Right, but you can barely fit a 5-piece band on that gazebo. This is, the way I envision this is gonna be bigger and better than what we have, right? So the idea of ARPA money is, it's COVID money that we received for a purpose, right? We couldn't congregate for 3 years.
That's right.
Plus or minus, right? I wanna be able to have a band shell that we can say, look, we used the money that we got from COVID to build this bigger and better. We replaced it so that the sun's not in your face. Those poor bands that perform there, and we have now a better view shed for it coming from the park, right? So that said, on the 50-foot, that's putting it out in the middle, right? I get to 25, like I want to be able to stand there and look at where this thing's going to go. And we've been successful in the past with site visits and standing places. Palmatier Park, right? It's not square to anything.
No.
Well, we stood there on that property and said, even though the drawings say it should go this way, it looks better if we do it like this. And it does look better based on the optics, right? So it's the same thing with this. Looking at where the footprint would be, looking at where the setback would be. I think that we can do that this weekend and get a better idea of what this thing's gonna look like. I just don't wanna be in a situation where we build it and then we say, well, that doesn't look any bigger than what we had.
Yeah, no, I'm fine with that.
So I do have a question for you on the cost side of this. So $850,000, I get that, $100,000 for architectural work. $750, how do we know that $750 is enough to cover what you're gonna build? Because you've got to send it out for bid, correct?
Yes, so we actually.
So we really don't know if $750 is enough to cover it,
Nassim has a contingency.
unless you have an estimate someplace.
We were working with the town supervisor, and we had come up with a design, and based on that design, we selected materials based off of what we feel as a firm would fit the budget for this project.
Because the original 750 is when we did the allocation a year or so ago, we were talking about how we were going to spend the $2.2 million worth of ARPA. 750 was specifically for this project, so it's the same number. So I just want to make sure again that 750 is going to be enough to cover.
I had asked Nassim and Larry to stay within that budget. And based on that, they were able to review materials. Mr. Podgy, would you be able to opine?
So I think you're exactly right, Al. We're not gonna know until we get hard numbers. That's the truth of any project, until you get a bid to come out. There's a couple things that could be cut out of this if the project, goes over and you can still get a stage, but whether or not you guys would want to eliminate some of those items. One of the handrails, right? The handrails are somewhat decorative.
Yes.
And also the glue lamb could become more basic rather than like a cloud herringbone design, whatever it is. It could be something that's just.
And that's if we want to strip from it. I don't think we want to do that.
I don't think we want to either. I think we're all in favor. We need to do the stage.
Right.
That's not an issue. It's just a question of also of cost too. And I guess the only way you'll know the cost is by going out to bid. My fear is that with materials and everything else going up, it's going to be greater than 750.
And the other thing is we're not going to have the benefit of time on our sides to bid it either. A lot of times.
Right, we have till November 22nd, you said,
You have
right?
the ability to wait. You have the ability to wait for a better price, but, so time is definitely working against us here. If we do go out and visit the site, what we will have the benefit of doing is we could probably throw some stakes in the ground to see them and giving them a rough idea of where this thing's gonna be, so you can
Yeah.
visualize that as well. Could probably even set something up to see what it looks like, being 36 inches, maybe bring the,
Maybe
Yeah, that would be very
48.
helpful.
We could facilitate that.
Sure.
Okay. Any other questions? All right. Thank you very much, Naseem.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Our acting supervisor of buildings and grounds, Mr. Masali, would you be like to come up to the podium, please? So our acting supervisor of buildings and grounds and our new mechanic in the department has obviously raised a concern that is of no surprise to any of us, that to safely operate and maintain and work on our vehicles, we do not have a safe lift mechanism for them to do that. And I had asked our acting supervisor to come in and give a brief synopsis on this proposal, which we have our estimates laid out here on our desk.
Well, thank you for this opportunity to speak with you, and thank you for the approving the mechanic for the Buildings and Grounds Department. It really changed things around, it really pushed us ahead. When before we had the mechanic, we only had three vehicles out. Out of 9 vehicles, 3 were out, and at the same time we had our seasonals here, and we had no way to get. We had to pretty much try to have people drive our employees to parks, and then go to another park, and then come back and pick them up. At times, I had to use my own vehicle, so they can use, they're available to have their own. The mechanic has gotten all the vehicles back in working order, and we're able to do many repairs, including the mowers. So basically, what's happening now is to make these repairs, to continue doing what we're doing, we need a lift. Recently, we were working on one of our vans. We had to change out one of our gas tanks. And the way we did is we got cardboard, put it on the ground, and slid underneath the truck and the van, and we had to change out the gas tank. At the same time, when we installed the gas tank, we had a problem with the wiring. So now we had to spend another 2 more days, trying to find the continuity, trying to find out where the wire was failing, where we couldn't get enough voltage. And also we had work on the new supervisor, the supervisor's truck that was out for 2 years. He got that moving, but we had also go underneath that. We had replaced brake lines, transmission lines. But again, we had to do all this laying on the floor, on our backs, on top of cardboard. Of course, we got the job done, and everything's working. So in order to do this safely for our employees, and also to have it where we can now quickly repair and maintain our vehicles, we need a lift. So I spoke to the town supervisor, and I went out and got 3 quotes. So we were looking for a lift, including, this is Lenny Santucci, the mechanic, helped me look for these estimates. Out of the 3 estimates, the one we were looking at is that works for the department is the Mohawk lifts. This lift comes with the attachments for the mowers. So not only we can service the vehicles, we can service the mowers. The other 2 quotes, estimates that we have, the lift, they only come just with the lift. They have no attachments. The Mohawk lift is also, the installation is included. And this will give us the opportunity to quickly service our vehicles and also to maintain them, and to do it in a safe way.
Thank you.
So I'm presenting I put in front of you all the 3 quotes. The one we're looking for is Mohawk lift is at the $28,000. And the other 2, actually I have 4 bids. I'm missing one that's a Snap-on, but that one goes close to $48,000. So this would be a big help for the department to move forward in doing things safely and to quickly get our vehicles and our equipment back out in the field. The reason why we have our parks and everything is getting done quickly is because we have a mechanic who's got everything on call. He responded to almost 11 calls since he's been here.
And I
that's
can,
flat tires,
Yeah.
We had casters breaking down, we had belts flying off the machine, we had vehicles that just won't start, so I have him set up in one of the vans that we have, and he quickly responds, comes back. And sometimes we have to bring the vehicle back or the mower, and we have to get them back in surface as quickly as possible.
I was going to say, at the beginning of the year, when I took office, we had, to be blunt, a very unsafe fleet. And now, thanks to Lenny, and again, thanks to the town board for supporting the hire of Lenny, our mechanic there, we have been able to get this fleet fully operational. And by doing so, to summarize what the acting supervisor, Buildings and Grounds, had said was, get more projects accomplished. I know that in addition to myself, my colleagues on this dais have gone out there to personally see Lenny's work and to see how the shop out there has been cleaned up magnificently. It is efficient, it is safe, it is clean, it is a solid workspace, and having this piece of equipment here would allow them to do their jobs safely, but also get more work done.
So I was out there, actually, I agree with you with what you said. It's safety issue here. I think we need to purchase the lift. The question is, where are you going to put it? We took a look at the Oakwood Knolls place. I think that one's too small of a location. You have to knock down a number of walls. I know the floor is set, so you could actually put the lift on the floor, but again, walls would have to be knocked down, have to put heat into the building. I know the electric's there. If you looked at the barn, you have to replace the actual floor on the barn, right? One on Montford Road there, so that would have to be redone. You have to install new electric there, right? Because there's a...
Correct, yeah.
So that would need to be done, but
Yeah,
I
the
think
barn
the
would be,
bigger...
we need the floor, we have a new cement floor, just in the mechanic area, you don't need the whole entire facility. And we would have to bring in more power. The Oakland Knolls property, that one there, we have the floor and we have the power. So basically, we have to blow out some walls, they're not supporting walls. Usually to...
It's too small a location. I was talking with
It's a
Lenny.
smaller building, yes.
It's
So
too
we
small
would
to
not
do
be
any
able to
work on the
locate
trucks
the
that
whole
we're talking
entire-
about. So again, we'd have to determine location, but
Correct.
that's kind of secondary. But
Yeah.
I agree that this is something that we need. I saw, Lenny out of the trucks there with the small little lifts there, and that's dangerous to do that. And we want to make sure our employees are safe. So I have no issue with moving forward with something like this. The question is timing, but again, I think it's something we need to get there. And again, if we decide to do the barn, you have to fix the floor first before you can get that in there, if that's where we so decide to do it. But I think the other place, looking at Oakwood Knolls, is just too small a location. And I think you and I have had that conversation, because we went out there to take a look at it about a week ago. So I have no issues moving forward with it.
Is there any further discussion?
Would you suggest just doing where the mechanics is gonna work, or skim coating it, or would you have to grind it down and pour a new floor?
If the floor would have to be completely poured.
The barn would need a complete replacement. The barn requires a significant upgrade, electrical, heating as well,
It's
right
got
now.
heating in there now.
But that's a temporary setup. Just to note, Buildings and Grounds is hanging, plastic tarping to separate heat from that space, from the other half of the space. There's open holes in both the siding there. It's an old dairy barn. So just to put that in perspective, again, like you said, not important right now, but just to put that in perspective, the barn does require a lot of work. And again, if the board would allow the acting supervisor to move forward on the lowest bid, at least we can move forward and get this moving.
Is this budgeted?
This is not.
No,
This
it
would
is
be
not.
funded out of B fund balance if the town board would consider.
So do we know where this is going to go yet, or no?
It would go to either one of two places. It would be the barn or Oakwood Knolls. Oakwood Knolls, again, as the acting supervisor had mentioned, is where we're looking to eventually move Buildings and Grounds. It would offer them a better facility out of the way, out of Martz Field, and that's where we're looking to go there. It is a easier site to move into than rehabbing the barn.
Also to, really carefully looking at Oakwood Knolls, it's easier to heat up that building. It's a lot smaller and the ceiling is about 15 feet.
But it's a
compared
much
to-
smaller
yeah.
building, you have to knock
Yeah.
walls down and everything else, right?
It's just 2 walls that we have to
They're
knock
gonna
out.
knock walls
yeah.
down.
Yeah.
But again,
It's,
we've knocked walls down in this
But
building
I
and the
mean,
emergency
the
services
proper way is
building.
fine, it's just, it would be easier to heat it up. We already have the power there also too, able to supply for heating and for.
So we'll just have the town board take a look, and you can make a determination, but let us take a look. I've
Yeah.
seen it, you've seen it, let others take a look at it, and we'll determine which is the best place. But let's move forward with this first if we can.
Do we have to,
I agree with you.
do we have to
that
raise
should.
the roof?
No,
No.
for Oakwood Knolls,
It's at the
no.
right height, yeah.
Yeah, and again, Oakwood Knolls is, it's a solid site, it's a airtight, watertight building. You don't have gaping holes in it, and,
It's, you know, very light repairs
Take a look
on
at
the-
it.
on the outer shell, but
it-
it's not
the
a.
building has boarded up windows, but that's about
I mean,
it.
previously, you know, we utilized the mechanic at the highway department to do all this work. And I understand there's more work now, and I get it, but we're essentially now building a whole new shop.
So I would like to add that with the hire of Mr. Santucci as our mechanic, he came with his own tools,
Right.
saving us hundreds of thousands of dollars. I was shocked when he showed up on his own time to the barn with a flatbed tow truck, with his own tools, his professional kit, saving this town hundreds of thousands of dollars. The only thing that we have had to come to the town board for is this lift. Everything else is taken care of, everything else is budgeted. This would be the only thing here that we would need the town board to consider, and obviously offering a safer work environment for the Buildings and Grounds Department. Sal, would you be able to note the difficult situation we were in with the Highway Department when we were bringing vehicles there and things like
The
that?
problem with that was, not that highway was always willing to help.
Yes.
They're great, they really are. And they still help us with any tools that we are, specialized tools that we need, they're willing to, and then we purchase it later on. The problem we have is when we, like, and this is for the gas tank, when we wanted to use their lift, we have to give them the time frame. And I'm glad we didn't go there, because when we installed the new tank, then we found another problem. So if we would have told them, okay, give us 2 days, it would have ended up being close to a week. And they have their own issues that they have to take care of. They need that lift. And we can't foresee if something comes up that, you know, it's something like, we didn't know that this, we thought we'd just go put the tank on, get the fuel pump in there, and it goes on, it turns on, because the previous one was working. Just the tank was, you know, deteriorating. So this is what we're happening, and then we're gonna get into a situation where they need that lift back.
How many mechanics does the highway department have?
2.
You know, I have concerns about a vehicular lift with one mechanic and operating by himself with vehicles in the air. I have concerns about that. I've expressed reservations about hiring this mechanic previously, no offense to the mechanic, but we're now opened up a whole nother can of worms here in the town where we have to essentially build an entire new shop in a different department, where previously the reason why we hired the second mechanic in highway was to handle the buildings and grounds.
Well,
That's the genesis of this.
with all due respect, Councilman, too, a lot of those vehicles were not making their way to the Highway Department. The department head at that time was doing just this in a very unsafe manner with these vehicles. This was happening before we hired Mr. Santucci. This is happening, currently. What we're trying to do is, whether we hired a mechanic or not, we were still in this predicament that the Buildings and Grounds Department has mowers, they have vehicles that were being lifted up on these ramps and these, I don't know, the jacks.
Right,
I apologize, I don't have all the technical terms, but lifted up in these ways that were unsafe by the department head that we had to stop because he was not trained with the proper tools and techniques to do so. So whether we had hired this mechanic or not, we were having this happen. This is, again, correcting the errors of the past and moving in the right direction now. And I respect your opinion on it. I respect your position. But for me, the reason why I support this is this would be doing the right thing
Right,
and
I
finally,
understand.
and kind of closing that door on that.
I understand what you're saying, but again, we got to go back a little bit in time here, because the mechanic, the purpose of servicing buildings and grounds, small engine repair, that's what this was. Not putting vehicles up on a lift with a single mechanic in the shop. That is a concern for me. We have 2 mechanics in the highway department, so God forbid something goes wrong with a vehicle on a lift, we have 2 mechanics there. This mechanic coming in was a can of worms that I objected to initially, because I said, essentially, we're building a duplicative shop for another department when we have an existing state-of-the-art shop for the highway department. So now we're looking at spending $30,000 on a lift for a shop that has 1 mechanic that I have reservations about him working with large loads over his head. That's my position.
Well, thank you again. And again, that was already happening under.
It was not happening.
Yes, it was. That the department had vehicles suspended over his head with jacks and
How is he
ramps.
suspending vehicles over his head?
With jacks and ramps.
Jacks are not going to suspend a vehicle over your head, okay?
Was he climbing underneath? Was he
What
climbing
what the
underneath?
previous
Yes.
director was doing is irrelevant to what I'm saying.
Well, it was an unsafe condition.
We're moving forward here.
Yes, and I agree. We're moving forward with this lift.
We're moving forward, spending tens of thousands of dollars, okay? So I think I have a fair point here with expressing concern about creating another entire shop on the other side of town, when the intent of hiring the second mechanic in the highway department, I was here, was for the purposes of being able to service the buildings and grounds vehicles and the staff vehicles here. That was the whole point of hiring that mechanic. Now, I objected to hiring this mechanic. Nothing against this individual, does good work, but because we're now creating another whole expenditure for the town. And this is evidence of it right here, $30,000. So, spending $30,000 on a lift for a single mechanic shop, I have reservations with. God forbid there's an issue there, and he's working by himself. Now he has a vehicle over his head. That's my position. Doesn't mean that I'm against the overall mission of buildings and grounds, but I have concerns about this.
How would the rest of the board like to proceed?
Well, for the lift, my concern is if you split the buildings and grounds, because obviously everything that you have is not gonna fit over at the new place.
No.
So I'm gonna make Bill's hair hurt more and say, my suggestion would be build a steel building over there.
Yeah, and Oakwood Knolls has the property for it. I mean, yeah, I mean, if you wanted to do an expansion, right now, just to put in perspective, folks, our Buildings and Grounds Department, which was eliminated for a period of time in the early 2010s.
It was post the Great Recession.
Post the Great Recession, it was eliminated, has had to rebuild itself, and Buildings and Grounds is essentially the maintenance department for parks, facilities, so on and so forth for the town of Wappinger, and has essentially had to rebuild itself over the past 10 years since they were brought back. Yes, you're right, the second mechanic was originally brought on in highway, but again, those 2 mechanics who are phenomenal are working around the clock servicing highway vehicles, which we have well over 20, 30 vehicles over at the highway department. So they're constantly being serviced there. Our Buildings and Grounds Department currently operates out of a 1920s dairy barn with a leaky roof, holes in the siding, broken concrete. It was filled with clutter and has since been corrected thanks to Sal and his team. But again, we're trying to treat this like a true department here, because they do have real needs of parks, recreation, maintenance, and they have their own vehicle fleet, which needed significant attention and continues to need significant attention.
We have 9 vehicles and 6 mowers, and we have 5 trailers.
Mm-hmm.
So on top of seeing the stage, can we add to it to do a buildings inventory?
If you'd like to.
Because, let's put it this way, somebody's gotta make a case study. Do you retrofit the barn? Do you fix it and make it good? Do you go to the new site and put it in there? Or build a new steel building?
Well, and again, I trust our department head to to make a lot of these evaluations. That's why we have them day to day. I appreciate the board's interest, but if our department head feels confident with one or the other, I think that should be good enough for the town board to move forward with the purchase.
I'm good with the lift. My only concern is if you move the mechanic and then have half his fleet, so that means every time there's a breakdown, he's got to pack up his stuff, go over to the other location, do the repairs, and go back and set.
He's
It's
doing
just-
that now.
I'm just saying.
Yeah, we're already doing that. It's just,
Yeah.
So-
we have means to bring back the vehicle to wherever it is to.
Yeah.
I get it. I get it.
Well,
know,
where,
but
where
then
are we
if-
putting the lift? We don't even have an answer to that question.
That's my
We're gonna
question.
spend $30,000 on a lift and we don't know where we're gonna put it. I don't know, it seems like we're putting the cart before the horse here,
You can design something for us.
Oh, jeez.
for $100,000 more.
All right.
So do we have any idea what it would cost to retrofit the two buildings, so we can kind of take that into account too, to make sure? So if you're going to put the lift in one building or the other, is there a way to figure out what the cost would be? Because then
I
that'll
would
help
have
us
to look into
determine.
that to
Yeah.
see if, to come up with a cost.
And again,
That would be
that,
something.
yeah.
That'll help us
Yeah.
determine what location, and once we get the location, then we can say, okay, we've got, make it up, it's 20,000 to retrofit the two buildings, right? So
We
you-
had
28.
factored into the tentative budget money to retrofit the Oakwood Knoll site. Sal and I had worked on that, considering, this move. Again, I trust our department heads, to make these decisions day to day, and again, if he feels confident with one location, I would back it 100%. Again, just trying to service the need right now. The need is we have an employee underneath vehicles, maintaining them, they're not getting any newer. Would be great to purchase this lift to
I mean,
assist our
I'm for the lift
employee.
too, but I also want to take it into account Councilman Beal's concerns too.
You know, the vehicles and the mowers are essential to this department.
of
Anytime we
course
have
they are.
anything if we don't have them serviced quickly and safely, we can't mow. And if we don't have the vehicle, we can't get the mowers to a location. If the trailer fails, can't put the mowers on the trailer. So this lift is like the most important thing that we can have with this mechanic.
And again,
And we
it's,
need to have it safe because it's essential to have him safe. As far as having someone with him, I've always been with him, and there's always been somebody in the shop with him. Either maintenance mechanic is there or maintenance worker is there. We never do anything that's dangerous and he needs help with. I always assign someone, because in the morning, I always ask everyone's assignment, do they need anyone? And then I distribute the people to where they have to be to help out where they need to, So that would help. Definitely mechanic will always have someone there. If it's something he has to do in a lift, I will have someone, either I'll be there or I'll have someone else assigned to it. But every morning I know who needs what, and that's how I distribute the employees. But he's never been alone, like working underneath being on the ground even, I did not leave him alone. I made sure I was with him, or I have Juan with him, or, I have, Brandon's with him. Someone's always with him. If
this
it's-
was
if
not
he's needed, so-
haphazardly presented to the board. The due diligence was made. We have actual quotes, not ones written on napkins. So this is,
I get that, but what building is this going in?
my choice would be Oakwood Knolls.
Okay, I need a definitive answer, and I want to see the building before I'm
There
going to
was-
spend
there was a- There was a
$30,000.
definitive answer until some of our colleagues wanted to change it.
Okay, I mean,
That was our plan, was to move
I
to the
can't
Oakwood
justify
Knolls
spending
site.
$30,000 on a lift that's not budgeted for, okay, without having more information. That's my position. All due respect, Sal, thank you for the hard work you do, and I appreciate you explaining that there will be somebody there to assist in these types of situations if there's a vehicle in the air. But I don't think it's unreasonable that perhaps this weekend we go take a look at these buildings and we can add that to our list of site visits
I think that's a great idea.
and have better information. It's not that I don't trust anyone here, don't take it that way, but we have a fiduciary responsibility as town board members, especially with uncertain fiscal times potentially approaching, to ensure that we are covering all the bases here. I don't care if it's 30,000 or 850,000. We need to make sure that we're doing our due diligence for our own specific wards as well. So, all due respect, thank you.
Thank
So
you.
there's pluses and minuses to both locations, right? They both need upgrades to get. could you
Right,
just give us-
one building, like the building we're in now, would need a floor, and it would need electrical to supply the power for it. Oakwood Knolls has the flooring, has electrical, it's just a smaller building. But it's quicker to heat up. and to cool down.
And it's a metal prefab building that
It's a metal
could
prefab building that you can even extend on in the future. if you need to.
extend on, knock down a wall or two.
Knock
It-
down,
it-
the walls are just, is really no.
It's more
it's-
affordable
it's-
at that
it's- Yeah,
location.
it's just blowout walls, and sheet rock, and one is just, is blocks, but that's not a big deal.
And the genesis behind this too is, obviously, we've seen an increase in activity at Martz Field, which is fantastic. We've made great investments to that park, especially this year, this administration. People are using that park now more than ever. And what you see on a huge portion of that site is, construction zone. You see buildings and grounds, their materials, their tools, their trucks. You see all of this activity in the center of a park. So the idea was to move it to a location more centrally located in town, and off the beaten path in a sense that it's not visible for residents that are playing tennis or pickleball or, picnicking over at Martz Field, looking right across at, the operations of the Buildings and Grounds Department, seeing shipments of bleachers coming in or seeing stacks of material and things like that. That was the genesis behind this move, which I thought was good to go until recently. So.
I mean, you have the same thing, though, with the new location, right? Because now you're going to go be down Roberts Boulevard or Roberts Lane and down Patty Place, and you get a lot of vehicles going down there now, so it's going to impact them as well.
We have a total of how many vehicles in Buildings and Grounds?
9.
9, and they go twice a day out of there, beginning in
Twice
the
a day.
afternoon? Yeah,
Yeah, 2 to 3 times a day.
yeah,
Might
and
be-
just for matter of fact as well,
But usually
Camo
on
Pollution
production
Control does operate out of there currently as well, so they do have cars coming in and out of there.
Right, so now you'll have more traffic. So
No, they would not be there anymore, so,
They're still in that garage that's there,
Yeah.
not the other building.
we haven't moved it yet.
Anyway,
Anyway.
take a look at the buildings, make a determination, and then if we decide whatever building you decide, then see if people want to do the lift. So we're not going to make a decision tonight, it's clear.
Obviously. Okay, thank you, Sal.
Thank you, Sal.
Much appreciated. Thank you to your team for everything that they're doing. Thank you. Okay. Moving along to our consent agenda. Resolution 2024-199, resolution adopting final benefit assessment roles for special improvement districts and special improvement areas for fiscal year 2025. Resolution 2024-200, resolution adopting capital budgets, O&M charges, and water and sewer rates and rents for special districts and special improvement areas for fiscal year 2025. Resolution 2024-205, resolution authorizing installation of street lighting throughout the town of Wappinger. And Resolution 2024-206, correspondence log. Do I have a motion?
I'll make the motion.
Second.
Moved by Councilman Phillips, second by Councilwoman Bettina. All in favor? Aye. Opposed? None. Thank you very much. The consent agenda has passed. Moving along to our non-consent resolutions. Resolution 2024-197, resolution to designate a portion of the American Rescue Plan funds and authorize request for proposals to construct a new live performance stage at Brexel Schlotthouse Park. Do I have a motion to table?
Motion to table it?
Yes.
I'll make that motion.
Moved by,
I don't know where we stand. If there's no second, I'm going to support this, but I just think we should make sure it's on the agenda for the 7th of November.
oh, I would love to approve it right now, Councilman.
Oh, what's the motion then, right now?
Table it.
Oh,
But
okay.
because we had concern during the presentation about tabling it. I would love to move forward right now, designate the funds, at least allow Nasim and the engineer to the town to go out to bid, and we can fine tune and adjust what we need to right now, but at least authorize it and get the ball rolling. We can continue to have open lines of communication with Nasim and the engineer to the town if we decide to tweak this thing here or there, but I would love to move it forward right now. So if there is no motion to table, I'd love a motion to approve it.
Well, a motion to table overrides a motion to approve.
Yeah, so
we're already behind the ball on that one.
Well, I had said, I believe we had a motion to table.
So what I'll say is this, I don't necessarily, I'm not against this, but I'm not comfortable approving the resolution tonight.
Okay.
I certainly would like to make sure it's on the agenda for the special meeting, which we're going to authorize in a minute, on November 7th. And the reason why is I just want to get out there and I just want to look,
Right,
at what we're dealing with, that's all.
right.
So
So I second
I
the
motion
table.
to table.
Moved by Councilman Casella, second by Councilwoman Bettina. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? None. Thank you very much. It has been tabled. Resolution 2024-201, a resolution scheduling special town board budget meeting for November 7th, 2024.
I'd like to move this, but also make sure that in addition to budget, which is the primary purpose, any other business that may become before the town board that night is also included at that meeting.
Duly noted. We have a motion by Councilman Beal,
Second.
second by Councilman Phillips. All in favor?
Hold on, what time is that one? 7?
That's- Unless you want it earlier.
No, I don't want to do that. I don't want to do that again.
7 o'clock.
That worked against me. I'm still in
Yep.
trouble for that. So 7 o'clock.
All right. All in favor? Aye.
We
Opposed?
also schedule our site visit.
Oh, yeah, so I was going to ask Mike, do we need, if we're going to do we're going to go do a site visit this weekend. We're going to walk around on the property. What do we need to do so that it's
Legal.
legal? Because we're going to have more than 3. It's just going to happen.
Yeah, no, understood.
Or 3 or more.
That's a good question. You know, it's often that other boards will go do a site visit. You know, we can play it safe. Do you have any idea, you know, what time you're gonna go?
We're working on it right now.
Well, why don't you guys figure out a time, and then what we can do is we could just,
We'll buy a Dunkin'
Do
Donuts.
we need a stagger, is that what you're saying?
No, we need to notice it.
no, you could,
Yeah, preliminarily.
yeah, we could notice it. We
Yeah.
have enough time.
All right, so we got to look at our calendars, but I'm thinking Saturday afternoon maybe, or Saturday morning?
Saturday at 11.
Saturday at 11? Let me just
I could
make
do
sure.
sooner, 9.
Hold on a second here.
I've adjusted my life, whatever.
The only thing that I have on my calendar is Day of the Dead. That's what
Oh, Jesus.
the iPhone has.
I have a
Put on.
soccer game at Airport Drive.
This is not a nationwide holiday. It may not be observed in your region. Oh, okay.
Yeah, I can do,
All Souls Day.
So you're doing 11?
I can do 11 if the board can do 11.
Okay, 11 o'clock. We'll meet at Schlott House Park.
House. Yeah.
Okay.
You guys, then we'll authorize the clerk to publish a notice.
Yeah, so for the public, we're gonna be gathered there to walk around the property and evaluate what we just talked about. But since there's 3 or more board members present, we have to do it legally, because that would be considered an illegal town board meeting if we didn't properly notice it. So that's why, we're not gonna have a meeting, we're just gonna
No.
walk around and talk, but if anybody wants to,
If you want to show up.
and throw your 2 cents in, Grace, come on over.
I was going to say, Mrs. Martin, I think you might be on your way. All right, so with that, we can leave that till the end of the meeting to formally schedule that.
I think we could probably do a motion off the floor right now, because
Yeah.
I was
we
just trying to help the town clerk not adding things in the middle, but
It's no problem doing it
all right, so I'll move that the
don't want to hear about
town,
it later then.
I'll move that the town board convene at 11 a.m. at Schlott House Park for the purposes of a site visit.
November 2nd.
I'll
Which-
second it, but also we have to include Oakwood Knolls and also the barn, correct?
Yes, so following the site visit at Schlott House Park, I also would like this resolution to authorize the visit of the barn and Oakwood
Knolls.
Knolls.
Correct.
Any
So-
other locations?
I think that's good. So those 3 locations, you can go on tour with us if you'd like.
I'll second that.
Moved by Councilman Beal, second by Councilman Casella. All in favor? Aye. Opposed? None. Thank you very much. Any other floor votes?
That's a first.
Yeah. Government transparency, folks. All right, Resolution 2024-202, resolution approving preliminary budget for fiscal year 2025 and directing a public hearing therein. Do I have a motion for discussion?
Make that motion for discussion.
Second.
Moved by Councilman Casella, second by Councilman Phillips. I would like to amend the highway superintendent's salary, as that was not reflected with the 3% raise that was given to department heads and elected officials, and I would like to raise that to $102,000, $102,273.00.
Now, by changing that, we're just voting on, so just a clarification, so not only are we voting on the salaries, but we're also voting on the preliminary budget, but we have the opportunity, so we have the opportunity to change the budget, is my point afterwards. Salaries are set in stone tonight.
So tonight what's gonna happen is that what goes out in the notice of the preliminary budget, right? And obviously, we want the preliminary budget and the notice to coincide.
Yes.
But if they don't, it's what's in the notice that is what goes out. And when you go to adopt the final budget, there can be differences between what was noticed and what was adopted, but what goes in the notice is the highest amount that could be approved.
Yes.
So, if there's horse trading on what goes on between now and then, things could be lowered, but they cannot be raised past that notice.
Exactly. So essentially, folks, in an election year for the town of Wappinger, if there were political games happening, you could not lower the elected official's salary or the incoming elected official's salary after an election. Let's say if you did not like that individual. Not that that happens here, but if that happened, this gives that incoming elected official the protection of coming in. So we have to approve it before Election Day, and that's the preliminary budget here.
So my question is this, do we have to adopt the preliminary budget tonight?
Well, yeah, in order to move the budget forward, you have to adopt it and have a public hearing. So you're really running out of time, but yes, the answer is yes.
Yeah, and
So
So if we,
I
we don't adopt it,
So here's how it works. In the absence of adopting the preliminary budget, the tentative budget becomes the preliminary budget.
Right.
So whatever published in the salaries, like Joey, your salary there was a mistake there.
Mhm.
You have to amend that now to adopt it. Otherwise, that goes.
that was
part of the
included in the
tentative budget.
resolution. That was included in this resolution.
Yes, it is, but
Yes.
if they don't adopt the preliminary budget, then the tentative budget becomes it, which is the mistake on your salary and then Mike Sheehan's salary as well. So,
Yep.
So the preliminary budget includes the elected officials' salaries, correct?
but it has the updated salaries in it.
Right.
that's the
And
biggest thing.
So it's got two updated salaries in this one. It's got Mike Sheehan and it's got the supervisors updated.
But there's never a situation where a town board has to vote for yes on something.
Yeah.
That's ridiculous.
right, but the point is that we are required to adopt the legal notice, which includes the elected officials' salaries, prior to Election Day, correct?
Not adopted, because what's in the tentative becomes the public hearing.
So,
What's in the tentative becomes the public, if you say no to this, what's in the tentative goes in that public hearing.
no, I get that, but what
So it's
I'm
not adopting the salaries.
right now, what I'm getting at is, the purposes of adopting tonight is so that the legal notice is published
With the new salary.
with the salaries that are accurate prior to Election Day, correct?
Right.
Correct.
That said, does the preliminary budget have to be adopted also tonight?
Yes.
So it's pretty much the same as the tentative, I think, there's no change.
If it's not, it reverts back to the supervisor's budget. In case you want to make any changes, you can't.
Okay,
Yeah.
all right, so,
So if you want to do some more
no,
trading.
you can. You can make the changes after Election Day, not just not to the salaries, exactly.
right, correct, right.
So, yeah, it's just, again, it moves along. So if the town board doesn't take action, it just moves along.
It moves
So,
right along.
and again, I've reviewed it, how it's been done in the past. Thank you,
Exactly.
Town Clerk, Mr. Paoloni. Typically, the town board has made amendments to the preliminary budget rather than the supervisor's tentative budget.
Correct.
Okay? Okay. So we have a motion and a second with the amendment. Any further
So,
discussion?
just want to clarify, I have two legal notices in front of me.
Right.
Yes.
We need to understand which one we are approving.
Very good.
So,
I was referring to the one in the packet. If anyone else would like to refer to the one on the dais.
The one in the packet does not have the 102, other than the fact that he modified.
Yeah, I just amended it, yeah. I mean,
Right, right,
yeah,
right.
yeah.
But else, right.
So the only thing that changes,
Yours as
Bill,
well, Joe.
so the
Yeah,
only,
no, I know.
Okay,
yeah,
you didn't
I-
mention
yeah.
that.
the only thing that changes from the notice that we got is the highway superintendents. It's the
And-
only thing that
And
changes.
Joey's.
Well,
No, Joey's is correct on
Yeah,
this
the
one.
supervisor is correct.
That was updated.
Yeah, that was updated in the one I sent you.
Right, but it's not in the tentative, is what I'm saying.
Okay, so then, If you
don't approve the preliminary, then
Right,
what's in the
right,
yes,
tentative
yes.
is wrong.
okay, so then I will just read aloud my,
I would-
and then in addition to the highway superintendent amendment, I make a motion to amend the town supervisor salary to $67,790
So we have two changes then. So in your budget you submitted on the 7th, supervisor was 67,133 is
Yes.
now 67,790. And the highway superintendent is 99,294, and it should really be 102,273.
Correct. It was originally calculated, the supervisors as a 2% increase, and then the highway supers was not entered because there was no request.
So this, just for everybody, for full transparency, because I went through this over the last week, basically what's happening here is all the elected officials are receiving 3%. That's consistent with our other raises that are offered within
Our
collective bargaining agreements and things.
Our management and
Management
confidentials got 3%, and then our union collective bargaining agreements got 2.25%, and that's reflected in the supervisor's tentative budget.
And one thing that I've been consistent on here, and I went back all the way to 2020 on these each year, is that there is a common methodology applied, right? There's no arbitrary numbers here with respect, especially to elected officials and appointed management confidential. So it's consistent. There was a typo previously. That's what they're talking about. There was a typo that was in one of the budget lines, which happens during the budget process. But right now, the reason why we're taking a little additional time to make sure we have these numbers is because these are the numbers that reflect exactly 3% across the board so that it's fair and equitable. And there is a methodology in place, which is what we do each year here. In fact, there were a number of years during COVID where there were no raises for elected officials. It went on for 3 years. And because we don't do this for the money. We do this because we are trying to do better for the town. And if you look at our salaries as compared to other municipalities that are adjacent to us, you'll see that our salaries are lower because we don't do this for the money. Understand that we put a lot of time and effort into making sure that there's fair and equitable methodology in play for all that work here in this town. So I appreciate the supervisor and the town clerk. I know that there had been back and forth making sure that things were proper here. And as we adopt the preliminary budget tonight, it's going to include exactly what we just discussed. And then these elected official salaries get published in the newspaper. That's the requirement, so that everything is 100% transparent.
Correct.
Am I correct?
Correct.
That's right.
All right, so then, is everybody comfortable with adopting the preliminary budget tonight?
Yes.
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
And then what that means is the preliminary budget now, for us, we're gonna have a budget meeting on Monday, and we're gonna go through line items, and yes, we're gonna deliberate, right?
No, on the 7th.
Excuse me, on the 7th, we're gonna deliberate, and we're gonna discuss some line items, because we don't all agree on everything here, which I think is healthy, right? I do believe that the decorum on this town board, when we don't agree, is still a lot better than other levels of government. And we're respectful to each other, and we also in this town represent wards, right? And out of the 932 towns in New York State, there's only 28 that have ward systems, and that gives us the ability to lobby on behalf of the residents that live in our ward. So sometimes I want something like a playground that Al has already, right? And I have to fight for that to get that into the budget, right? Chris owes me one. So
I'm getting one.
No, you got one.
I'm getting a new one.
So that's what we do, and I think in our town, it's unique because there's many towns that are trying to get rid of their ward systems, right? But I think it works for us, and, Joey, you're gonna help me out on that Lou Deal
Yes.
Park, right?
Yes.
Get something over there?
Yes.
So, we're gonna do that on November 7th, right?
We have an Eagle Scout moving forward with a number of improvements there, and let's talk. Maybe
Yeah.
that could be part of our site visit.
So when you hear horse trading, that's what it means, when we're trying to fight
No,
for
I'll
our
show you all the
wards.
improvements out there, no cost to the taxpayer.
Because Chris and Al have enough playgrounds for a while.
Okay, all right. On that, thank you for the discussion, Councilman.
So I'll move that we approve.
We
the
already had a
preliminary-
motion.
Okay.
We had a motion, we had a second.
All right, cool.
We had, on the amendment, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? None, thank you very much. Preliminary budget is set. Thank you, folks. Resolution 2024-203, resolution authorizing revision of the Town of Wappinger Comprehensive Plan. Do I have a motion for discussion?
I'll make the motion.
Moved by Councilman Casella, second by Councilman Phillips. On this resolution here, again, piggybacking off of our moratorium in local law number 1, this town board has set forth a vision to limit the overdevelopment in this community. We have done an amazing job so far at approving a number of local laws and speaking with our town attorney. The first step in limiting a number of the high-density developments that we are seeing proposed in the town would be to amend the comprehensive plan. This resolution would authorize the LaBerge Group to move forward with necessary changes and recommendations that the town board would then be able to vote on to start the process to limit the overdevelopment, and then that can be piggybacked with a town code change.
Can I just speak on
Yes.
that for a second?
Of course.
So we're having a discussion with LaBerge about 240-19 and 240-50. And those have been very difficult sections of the zoning code, both to apply and interpret. And so I was having a discussion with the supervisor about, hey, what do we want to do with those code sections? Do we want to leave them in the code? Do we want to modify them? And as you guys know from prior litigation and being forced to put one of those code sections back into the code after it was taken out, I felt the appropriate thing to do is to have LaBerge, which is your planner, to take a look at the comprehensive plan as it currently exists and as it relates to those code sections, and craft some potential amendments for you guys to look at to the comp plan, which would be the basis for either an amendment to the sections or the removal of those sections. But you can't do one without the other. And now that you have you really have a solid planning firm behind you guys, they're the right people to look at those things for you and to make some suggestions for you guys to chew on. And that's what this resolution would do. And that's the underpinning to any amendment that you guys make as it relates to those items.
Thank you.
So we're actually looking for recommendations for the plan, and we're not really authorizing changes to be made yet because we want to be able to review them. And I assume we do some kind of workshop?
I agree.
If you'd like a workshop, sure. We can
I
definitely
think
talk
it's
about it.
appropriate for us to understand the changes they're going to make before we vote on them.
Well, no, there's nothing.
Yeah.
They are, what they're doing is, you're gonna authorize LaBerge to look at your master plan.
That's all this is?
That's,
Just look at it?
yeah, no,
Yeah.
this is
Okay.
not the, this
Yeah,
is
and then
not
it would be
directing.
Up for a town board discussion, no different than what we've done here tonight. Town board would deliberate it, look at all of the revisions, so on and so forth. This is not
So this
giving
is
them a
give them
blank
permission to
check.
go take a look at it?
Yes,
Exactly,
and
exactly.
in trying to be as transparent to the town board as possible with what we are doing, as has been requested throughout this year, and to fix the problems of the past, this is again, looking to you folks for permission to do this.
So, again, my concerns were the same when I read it. If we said the resolution authorizing the review and recommendation of the comprehensive plan, would that be a better? Because when I say revision, it means they're gonna make changes and. we're
But
authorizing
the
that.
body of the resolution does dictate.
Okay, no,
all
I'm
of that.
just, so,
That's on me, Chris, I'll take I wrote it, it wasn't intended to commit you to
I
a
know.
revision, it was intended to.
that was just my concern.
Yeah, no, and I
I'm
appreciate
like,
it. and I-
there's legalese in there, isn't
Yep.
it?
Yeah, yes, there is, and it protects the town
Okay.
for that exact reason. So if you're comfortable with the body of it,
Absolutely.
okay. We had a motion, we had a second. Any further discussion?
Yeah, just on the question. So I was here in 2010, 2009, 2008, when we revised the comprehensive plan previously, and it cost a lot of money.
We are not looking to do that. We're looking to specifically focus on those elements there.
Yeah, Bill, this authorization was intended to analyze those two things and to make some recommendations to the board on a modification to the comp plan, just on that. It is not, you haven't authorized LaBerge to do a complete,
No.
that would, in our opinion, require
Got
charrettes and all kinds of other, that would be a much larger process. We were really just looking at, hey, look, we have these provisions, they are very difficult to apply. As a matter of fact, we have disagreements, let's say, Kyle and I are having discussions about what to do, how do we apply this particular section of law? And sitting with Barbara and, let's say LaBerge or the planning board's planner, we come to different conclusions as to what to do. And so the discussion with LaBerge was, hey, look, let's take a look at, first, let's look at the master plan as to these two particular items and see if you guys have some ideas for us. That's what this is intended to do.
Yes.
Thank you.
Is everyone comfortable? Okay. We had a motion, we had a second. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? None. Thank you very much, folks. And Resolution 2024-204, resolution introducing local law of 2024, amendment to Chapter 230-45, Schedule X, Schedule 11. Thank you. Whoa, I thought it was in Chinese for a second. Jeez.
So I'll move this.
Dean Avenue weight limit.
I'll move on the Dean Avenue weight limit.
Moved by Councilman Beal, second. Need a second. Second by Councilman Phillips.
Just on the question, you know, the number in here is 10,000 pounds. All right, this is basically a restriction of vehicles weighing over 10,000 pounds with the exception of local delivery, right? So what does that mean? Well, vehicles that traditionally weigh more than 10,000 pounds, obviously tractor trailers, we talked about that, flatbed trucks, box trucks, delivery vans, you know, exempt from local delivery, obviously. Yes, you'll still get your Amazon packages. RVs, dump trucks, medium-sized refrigerated trucks, right? So the 10,000 pound number is really the number that is a best practice for anything that's more than a light-duty vehicle. Is that accurate, Counselor?
That's my understanding.
Yeah. So that's where we're at on this. We think that this is a good first step. We talked about this already. We want this to not only be codified in the law, we want this to hit the commercial GPSs too, so these individuals aren't thinking, oh, I'll just go around the block, because your grade elevation does not permit that, and your sight distance doesn't permit that. So
Correct.
This is a first step, right? We're going to continue to have dialogue with the folks on Dean Avenue, but we need to start somewhere, and this, I think, is the smartest place to go. Go ahead.
Yes.
I just want to add one thing. Bill and I had some discussions way back about local traffic only, but that is a sign that doesn't exist in the manual of uniform traffic control devices, which governs the signage that we have, and the enforceability of the signage. So I just want the board to know I looked at that.
Yeah.
I think that's a really appropriate sign. But because it's not in the manual of uniform traffic control devices, it's getting late, so it's hard to.
It's
not enforceable.
Yeah, it's not enforceable.
Yeah, I don't want you guys to be in a situation where we put up a sign and then,
Right.
someone gets a ticket and they show up at court and they undo our ordinance in
Right.
court. So that's, the weight limit was the best first step.
So was it
Thank you.
10,000 pounds and less local delivery?
Yeah.
Correct. And just to give you an idea of the research, I was teaching on Long Island in Nassau County, town of Hempstead. I was sending pictures of Joey of different signs that I said, hey, this might work, but all those signs, the ones that they put up in the town of Hempstead they're in their own world. It's not even something that we can enforce here, some of the things that they do in these Long Island towns. So what we're doing right now, we know is enforceable. We know that it's something that can be a good first step. And we are still having dialogue with the folks over there to make sure that we're focused on the challenge that they're experiencing. So I appreciate the board if you would support this.
Yeah, and to piggyback off of that, again, yes, Long Island is in the state of New York, but there are certain regulations specifically for Nassau County, Westchester County, the city of New York, that do not apply to upstate counties such as Dutchess, Putnam, so on and so forth. So, okay, we have a motion, we have a second. All in favor? Aye. Opposed?
We have to set the public hearing date.
Aye.
When does that have to be?
30 days.
All right. So, do we have a meeting on the 25th of November?
I think so. Do we have one
Yeah,
on
we
the
should.
25th?
We have one on the 12th of November.
Yeah, I think it's got to be farther out
30
though.
days.
Is the 25th going to?
No, the 11th is Veterans Day,
Thanksgiving.
Yeah, it's the 12th.
so we move it back.
The 25th is exactly 4 weeks, if that's within, if that's,
We can schedule it for the 25th, and obviously, we can change it if need be.
All right,
But
so
either way, it has to be
Fine.
out to 30 days.
all right, so we'll do the public hearing at 7 PM on the 25th of November, 2024. We'll have the public hearing that night, and then we'll have the accompanying resolution to approve the local law that night,
Correct.
and we'll get this thing done.
Beautiful.
Okay.
All right. Thank you very much. That was approved. For the sake of time, and folks, we do have zoning board of appeals interviews an executive session scheduled for this, so I am going to waive items for special consideration, new business, and ask for a motion to go directly into executive session for the purposes of interviewing candidates for the Zoning Board of Appeals.
Let me just say one thing, 30 seconds, that's very important.
30 seconds?
We talked earlier
Yes.
about this.
Oh, yes.
Folks, it is paramount that you make sure you are not burning outside, right? We don't allow open burning in the town of Wappinger anyway. We're a town with a population of over 20,000, which prevents open burning. But if you have a neighbor that's burning in a barrel, or you know, I'm not asking them to dime them out, but please tell them it's very important that they not be burning anything in this town, especially right now. With the way the dry conditions and wind are, with the relative humidity being low, it's a recipe for disaster. We had a simple cigarette that was tossed in the corner of the former Presbyterian Church parking lot
in Houstonville
a week and a half ago. It was probably tossed around 9 p.m. at night. By 2 a.m., it had extended right up to that barn. Not the one that got the car into it, the one behind it, and it was right up against it. So firefighters quickly, that's your barn? Firefighters quickly, that was close. That was a close call. If a passerby didn't call 911, that would have been a real big problem. So firefighters quickly put that. Yes, I think I spoke to your significant other on that. So the damage to the stone foundation is unfortunate, but it was, as Chairman Lorenzini will attest, it was very close to burning that barn down, and that's the last thing we want to see. So that said, folks, even tossing a cigarette right now is not a safe thing to be doing. Please make sure you properly extinguish any smoking materials and don't be burning. It's going to get up to 77 to 80 degrees this week, which could be a real issue for dry conditions as well. So
I think we should have that on the website.
It's already on the website. We sent it out via Wappinger delivery, and it's on social media.
Yeah, we did some messaging today.
Actually, and yesterday.
But just, you know, not everybody's on the internet. Remind your neighbors, please.
It's
Thank
already
you.
done.
Actually
All right.
posted here too in our bulletin.
Yep, all right, we
Thank
have, we already had a.
Go ahead.
All right, I made a motion.
Just
Do
so
I
we
have a
make sure
second?
that, just in the executive session, we have some other things we need to discuss after the
I-
interviews. So I just want to make sure
And what would those be, Councilman?
I think those things, we need our attorneys to talk
But
about
we
some
need, we need
things.
to specify exactly what they are.
So it's attorney-client privilege. We have a couple of things we need to look at.
Okay. I made a motion to go into executive session, second by Councilwoman Bettina.
And I just
All in
want to
favor?
make sure
Aye.
we cover items with our attorney, that's all. So we can go into executive session.
We're going into the conference room. And we will be returning in public session. Can we have Mr. Hernandez come follow us? Thank you very much. Okay, do I have a motion to come out of executive session?
I'll move it.
Second.
Moved by Councilman Casella, second by Councilman Phillips. All in favor? Aye. Motion passes. With that, I'd like to make a motion to move the name Christopher A. Hernandez of 106 Peter Drive, Town of Wappinger, to fill the unexpired term on the Zoning Board of Appeals. Second by Councilman Beal. Discussion? Seeing none, all in favor? Aye. Opposed? None, thank you very much. With that, there's no further business to come before the town board. This meeting is adjourned.
Move to adjourn.
Second.
Second. Oh, sorry. Yes, we did.
Aye.